This is where the fun begins.
Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to Literature Review. And I'm so happy to be here and give you a discussion regarding Wolverton's novel, Courtship of Princess Leia. And of course, he did pass away not too long ago. If you guys have been following myself and others who follow the EU on Twitter, you probably have seen us, pay tribute to him as well. And I have my guest here today, so we'll go with Miss Martin Muses. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Got my cup of coffee and really ready to go.
Awesome. So what do you have in your coffee?
Oh, it's actually marshmallow mocha.
Okay. I wanted to hear that because if Stig comes on and listens.
Yeah, it's definitely one he would disapprove of.
Yes, exactly. He'd be like, he would come in and say something. So, but I just think it's funny. And myself, I'm just having regular coffee, no flavoring other than just a little bit of creamer and sugar. That's it today for me. And all right. So, and then I have Orange Hat Review. It's been a while since you've been on my channel. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then so, of course, we this novel here that we're going over, Courtship of Princess Leia, is, of course, like I said, is Dave Wolverton. And the cover artist, which there's two covers. And I'm curious, which covers do you guys have? Do you have the one with her in the wedding dress or the one with her in her, looks like her, indoor outfit with the raincoat?
Oh,
wedding dress one for me.
Yeah, wedding dress. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Both of you guys have the one with the wedding dress?
Yep.
Okay. So I think we all do because mine too. I don't have, mine has the beautiful foiled rays logo on it for Star Wars. So there's no Legends label on here whatsoever. So, and it's still in great condition considering that I've read it a few times already. But the other one, and I think I did share it just a few minutes ago or seconds ago, is this one right here. This is one here where we have the Rain Corps, which basically was introduced through Wolverton. Well, not necessarily through Wolverton because it was on Return of the Jedi, but he expanded on it.
Oh yeah. With
the Witches of Dathamir, and so we have that there. So and then we go. I didn't want to click out of there. Thank you. All right. And then so Struzan's is the one that did the cover, and the hardcover came out in May 1994. The paperback May 1995. And this story is right before Tatooine Ghost. And so it's 8ABY. And so Teresa, quick summary. What do you think about Tatooine Ghost? Because this is right before that.
Well, Tatooine Ghost was definitely better written, and I felt like they were more in character. One of my objections to this book, I felt like there were some out of character moments with Han and Leia specifically, but and Tatooine Ghost was more serious. I felt like this book was, for lack of a better word, silly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then, so what do you think about that, Orange Hats? Tatooine Ghost, because this book is almost like you can almost read these back to back in a sense of understanding what's going on between the two, but go ahead, you elaborate.
I honestly have not had I've not read Tatooine Ghost yet.
What?
I have not read Tatooine Ghost yet. That's actually one of the next books on my list to get.
Okay, well, you're gonna have to get back with me on what you think about that because I like it. I know a few people that don't like it per se, but I really like it because we get to see finally Leia, and this is a little spoiler on her reconciling herself, her lineage, I guess you could say, her Skywalker lineage, her heritage.
Yeah, I know she goes to Tatooine.
Yeah, and that's all I'm gonna say. But it's a great story between her and Han, and then her discovery on things with her father, and what comes into her hands regarding knowing who she is. I'm not going to give you any other spoilers. You have to read it. You have to experience it yourself. So there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the chat before we move on here. And thank you guys for coming in, and please hit that like button. So we have Dermot McQuaid. Hello there, and how are you doing? And thank you, Orange Hat, for coming in and asking them to smash the like button. GB Luke, I did ask him to come on, but he's busy today. He had a very interesting conversation when they announced the new novel for the new lore, to Leia and Han's wedding. And so there was a crazy discussion that he was having with someone there on Twitter. Of course, you know how all that goes. Need I say more when you say Twitter? And then let's see here. Who else do we have? And then we have Dogzilla. Greetings. How are you doing? And Brian McCain, hail chat. And Fook Norris, good vibes. Hello, Gold Peak Tea. All right, myself coffee, Teresa coffee. And then are you enjoying any beverage right now, Orange Hat?
I had some black silk roast coffee with cream and sugar. And right now I'm just drinking a bottle of water.
Yeah. Wow. So Mr. CCDV says, Gads, it's been 25 years since I read that book. Yeah.
Pretty much the same amount of time since I read it.
Wow. Yeah. So let's see here.
More like 20 years.
And then Zaggerot, howdy, Alora, Teresa, Orange Hat and chat, coffee with creamer. Yeah, it's almost like a coffee chat, here, because we're doing it in the morning here. And then Miss Martin uses with her little wave and rose, classical wave and rose. All right, so let's get this started here. So the worlds visited are Coruscant, Dathomir, Roche, and Tula. And then the main characters are Leia and Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Isolar, which at the time when this came out was a brand new character and a character of a brand new species or race or a group of people, humans, Hathan Prince, basically who he is, and Thrakenhorn. So basically, Thrakenhorn is also in Tatooine Ghosts too. So, and then he's an Alderaanian politician, and Teniel Jo, who is a witch of Dathomir, and Gethzorian. She's a Night Sister, and Jin, Imperial Warlord. So we have those guys there. And did you guys have any favorite characters after the reading?
Teniel and Jezerian were my favorite Dathamerian characters.
Okay.
Frickin' Horn. I'm like, oh my god. First, get this dude like a serious gastrointestinal bypass surgery or something. Because the way they describe his character, how he's stuck on a chair, he's stuck on a hover chair. I'm like, yikes. But hey, it's good in doing all of their diverse bodies quota and whatnot. But anyway, honestly, Isolder was actually a pretty interesting character because of his growth in this book, even though it's his introduction into the story. Yeah. But Teniel and Jezerian's characters, it's like these two characters are also important, yet one of them only is in this book.
Yeah. And Teresa, did anybody stand out for you? It could be good or bad.
Oh well. Okay, well that just changed everything because who stood out for me is bad. Bad was Han and Leia. They sucked in this. They completely, absolutely sucked. I didn't even recognize them. They were as unrecognizable in this as they were in like The Force Awakens and stuff. But
bad.
I mean, it wasn't them. I'm just sorry.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It came out of nowhere. Them acting like complete fools. They were, and no disrespect to the late Dave Wolverton. But it is what it is. And he was a grown man. He would probably take it because I actually adore his work in the Jedi Apprentice. He did the first Jedi Apprentice book, which was magnificent. I think that just the whole premise of it was just absurd, and the way Han Solo was acting like a buffoon, and she was like, "You just got a problem with this." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are we 12 years old?" So yeah, it feels terrible to have to say that Han and Leia are the most obnoxious characters, but I'm able to kind of how do I say this? Compartmentalize this book and say that the parts that I did like, which were the Night Sisters and all that kind of stuff, that was great. I liked Luke's little side thing, so that was fun. So I just imagine that the bad parts just didn't happen, and the good part did. And yeah, what's her name? The Night Sister. Tendinil. I can't. I'll mispronounce it because it's DJO. Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
DJO is, or the way that I always pronounced it was either DO or Joe with just silent D.
How they say it on the Audible is Joe.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, kind of like like the Asian pronunciations of like TJ or TS and stuff like that. Yeah, so with me, I do agree with like some interpretation of Dave's of Dave Wolverton's Leia and Han. There were some moments that were really good for them, but there's also some like, were you just rushing this so you didn't take time to really flesh out why Han maybe feels this way, or why? Because I understood why Leia was doing what she did, but the way he interpreted her character.
Yeah. There were some ways that she reacted in the book. Yeah,
so her reactions felt rushed. They felt misaligned with her character, like how she feels, how we think she should feel. And but as they progressed along, and as Han, and we'll get into the story more, and as the story progresses along, you start seeing familiar glimpses of who they really are. I don't know if I haven't read any other books like for love stories of Dave Wolverton, so maybe he just doesn't know how to write those.
Yeah, because that is something that I also did pick up. I mean, one of my main critiques was how Leia and Han both kind of act in this book from a psychological point, because I am kind of in that area. I do understand how Leia could react in certain ways that she does, because if you think about it, she is torn between two very different possibilities here. So it's like, do I marry for love or do I marry for the greater good?
Yeah, for people to have a new planet to go settle on and all this other stuff. So we'll get into this. So so we have there's this immense pageantry in the 63 worlds of the reclusive Hapem clusters send a fleet to Coruscant in gesture of rare diplomacy to the government of the fledgling government of the New Republic. And so they send, it's Isolder, his mom, all of that. And with that comes an alliance of Isolder wanting to find the proper woman to marry, to lead the Hapens, and that is Leia. And so that is proposed to her. And in that discussion, if you guys remember that discussion, they all meet. Mon Mothma is the one that's really pushing this, because she's like, we got to do this for the better good. And I felt like she was a big bitch in this, really.
Actually, she was more neutral, because it was Threkin who was really trying to. He was the one that was setting it all up. He's like, yeah, she said yes. No, she didn't.
No, I thought Mon Mothma was she was like, well, yeah, I guess you got to do this, Leia. And I'm like, screw you, woman.
Yeah, she did, or she was she approved of it, definitely. But the way that
she kept on pushing Leia to do it, other than saying, you know what, we understand you and Han, blah, 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 blah. She kept on pushing that towards her. Like, maybe it was more, I would say, chill compared to Threkin. He was more antagonist, but she was also passive. I guess I'll use this word, passive aggressive towards Leia.
She was diplomatic.
Maybe. I don't know. Because if she took the diplomatic way, I would think that she would consider Leia's feelings about her and Han.
True. That is a good point there. But I do like how she, or in the beginning of this, where they're introducing all the Hapes consortium's gifts and whatnot, I do like how she's actually not a part of the proceedings because only Leia was invited. They actually did a good job at explaining that, where Han's talking to her. He's like, "Why aren't you down there?" I wasn't invited. And I figured, considering how this rare occasion that the Happies cluster has even decided to come out here, I decided to go by the book and not endanger anything. So it does show you that Mon Mothma does have the common sense to make this Leia's lead, so to speak, in this certain part of it.
Yeah. So, Teresa, what do you think about Mon Mothma and even Thraken and them pushing Leia into this decision?
Well, yeah, as I said, I my first thought was, who the hell do you think you are, Mon Mothma? You old hag.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, really, after everything? Yeah, understand. This was a book that I bought. Yeah, this is one. Is it this one that's signed, or that maybe it's Tatooine? No, it's Tatooine Ghost. I never met Dave Wolverton, but I'm just like, what the? Since when, Mon Mothma, are you a super bitch? Because one thing that was established in the trilogy, and I can back this up, this was established in the Fracken trilogy, that though Leia was a princess, this other stuff, she moved beyond, like, I'm a princess, I'm a this is my duty. And they brought this out in the novelization of Return of the Jedi too, that after they made the call, her and Luke made the call that they were going to save Han. That was a decision of the heart. That was not what was best for the rebellion at that time. And the people in the rebellion allowed them to do that and understood that. Leia had a shift, and she was like, yes, duty is one thing, but the heart is also something else. Right. And so for her suddenly to go back to maybe the Leia we saw in A New Hope, it was like, where's this coming from, Leia? You already made that call. You already made that decision in Return of the Jedi with the rescue of Han Solo. So yes. I just felt like it, and I think that's why it felt off and it felt contrived. I think he was trying to create some tension, but he could have perhaps done it in another way, or maybe he was given direction. I don't know, but that's my call on that. And bitch.
Yeah, it's like, she's a bitch.
And Thraken was a jerk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he is, and he still was a jerk in Tatooine Ghost. So that's all I have to say. But but with me, like, okay, so I agree with that. I agree with, like, this. They're in a state of like they're in a state of like early development of the New Republic. And they want stability and stuff. And so Mon Mothma seeing her as stability. So it was a political move, which made, and I would like to say and give Wolverton credit, or would hope to give him credit for this. This was a development, like, what do you call it? Leia was very conflicted with her duty of being one of the people responsible for building and Mon Mothma's understudy, I guess you could say, and building the New Republic versus, just being for herself and allowing herself to marry for love and marry for that. I wish Wolverine, I mean, I did see hints of that, and I've argued that Leia, some of her thought process was because she wanted what was best for her remaining people of Otter Alderaan who survived that weren't on planet, versus her own personal, happiness. And I think I think that's there, but I don't think that Wolverton really fleshed that out a lot. Because if he did, like, we wouldn't have this conflict between fans of this book of like, Mon Mothma was a bitch and Leia was unrecognizable, versus I understood where David Wolverton was trying to go with this. So I think he should have done a better job at fleshing her Leia's conflict for the good of the galaxy versus hers.
Well, one way that I think that he could have done a better job was explain that while Han and Leia have been together for, I believe this is 4 years after Return of the Jedi,
Correct.
that
After he
they
made that decision for love to
yeah,
rescue him. Yeah. Go ahead.
and they could, or he could have explained that while they have been together as a couple, this sort of allegiance or alliance between the Hades
Mhm.
Consortium,
Mhm.
he does explain that it is a big deal, but it's like he realize that, or I don't think he realized just how strong the chemistry between Leia and Han were in the beginning of
Yeah.
the book. And if
That
he
was
would
a
have really investigated that a little bit more and weighed and had Leia weigh the decisions a lot more,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
would have come out a lot better.
Yeah. And I also think that he relied a little too heavy on the humor. I think he was going for humor.
That
And
also, yeah.
and it fell flat. It fell flat.
Humor is good in Star Wars, but there's a point where if you put too much humor, it will destroy the story. It is a very thin line when you want to inject humor into a story. And the way that they did that, for the most part, yes, Han and Chewie had a lot of humorous moments in Return of the Jedi and stuff, but the bigger the where humor was mostly put in Star Wars was through the droids, C-3PO and R2-D2.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
Well,
where
it
I
was
found most of
contrived
the
humor.
humor.
It was like, oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna make this funny. Like Han's got to like act a fool and all that. And that's
And
kind of
that,
where I was.
I mean, the only way that you could really chalk it up to a way that it could work is fools do a lot of crazy things when they're in love,
Mhm.
but Wolverton did kind of overdo it in this book a little bit.
Yeah. And see, what my point is, what I was understanding is that Leia was conflicted between what was right for the galaxy versus her own needs and stuff. Which, like I said, I wish Wolverton would have gotten across a little bit better than he did.
Yes.
And so let's go move on here. So Han Solo has other ideas. So once he finds out this big announcement, this big proposal, and Leia is being pushed into this because she is the princess of Alderaan, right? So they're using that royalty story of like she as a princess must marry for her people and not for love, basically, is what I got from this. And to create a bigger a better bondage between systems and stuff like that, to create a stronger alliance, basically, of the New Republic and stuff. And Han finds out about this, and so we'll talk in general with everything that Han puts forth from there. He does, as a true curling scoundrel fashion, he ventures into the underworld of Coruscant and does bet high stakes and basically wins the planet Dathamir. So let's talk about Han's response here. So Teresa, go on, tell me what you thought about his response and what he did, and just give it your all.
Well, I think I've already said it. He became a buffoon, and again, this is just going back to everything where I felt like that's why he was out of character, because we'd already gone through Han and Leia going from A to B, and now they were going to C. And then the idea that Han thought, I'll act like a fool, and that will win Leia to me. He never acted the fool to get her before. And
he was willing to give her up if like when he didn't understand the relationship between Luke and Leia and what the discovery was, he was willing to step aside for her. And basically that's being humble, really. That's being humble and say, okay, I honor you, and if this is where you want to go, I honor you so much that I'm just going to allow it to happen because I respect and love you so much.
Precisely, yes. And I mean, if they wanted to do this in character, they really could have oh my gosh, my grammar, I apologize, I used about 3 different verbs when I shouldn't have. They could have done it where there was some genuine mature discussion with what they were facing, and still injected the humor and the banter that we know Han and Leia had, the way that Timothy Zahn was able to do it in the Heir to the Empire when they were married and she was pregnant. They were as settled as could be, but they still had that chemistry and that humor.
Yeah, I'm not a comedian. Luke's like, I wish one day I would find out what that was about.
Well, no, that
Yeah.
just the way they would banter back and forth. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's possible. I mean, and again, we don't know what was going on in the editing room or the notes and all that, because whenever I'm commissioned to write something, well, it's been a while because I kind of gave up my writing career, but I would be told, here's the parameters of what we want you to do. I was an essayist, and it's like, okay, I'll do that. And very
Mhm.
similar when you're doing a work of fiction from the writers I know, that they're like, especially when you're going in someone else's universe, it's not like you're just going to make it up. And there was a point where maybe if he had have gone a little too far, or some of the criticism that we're saying, there was somebody, an editor, or the different writers that were working with Star Wars at the time, that apparently didn't see a problem with that. That a writer can always write something, but I always look to who's doing the vetoing, who's doing the editing. So
Yeah.
it had to be greenlit at some point. So whatever he did was within the parameters of what he was told. Again, because in Star Wars, or if you're writing for Star Wars, Star Trek, you're writing for something that's not your own franchise. You have to play by their rules, not
Right.
vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. That's the misconception a lot of people, like these anti-EU people, have. Like, oh, they could write whatever they want. No, that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of people don't like to do it. Some
Yeah.
writers will say, they're like, oh, wouldn't you like to write for this? And they're like, well, nothing against any of that, but no.
Yeah. Mhm. Exactly, because my ideas will be shot down, and I don't feel I would put my best effort into it if I get shot down a lot and stuff. And there's a lot of novels that were not published because their ideas didn't coincide with George's and his vision and the rules and the guidelines and the lore that he set aside for them to follow. So, and that Heart of the Jedi is one of them. And so that's a great point there, Teresa. Is okay, so the editor allowed this, whoever did not veto this allowed this to happen. And I get that Wolverton was making Han look like he was very desperate and in need, which I've never seen Han that desperate. Desperate to save or desperate to survive, that's all, being tactful and stuff like that. But like desperate in love, there's always first time for everything. I understand that. But did he do it well? From people I talked to, like you, Teresa, I understand that this was a very off-putting for you guys with that because it wasn't well done. It was, to me, rushed. That's how I felt. That he could have done a lot more better with showing maybe Han's desperateness, maybe showing them have a more intellectual conversation with what's going on. I do know that in this book that they do talk between each other, and that's what sets Han off in his desperate plight.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that they did do in the X-Wing books, I believe it was Solo Command, I think they tried to help out a little bit. They gave a little bit of insight into his psyche, because I remember when I read it, it's like, oh, okay, because maybe people noticed that the fact that Han Solo was getting really burnt out and was just kind of done with a lot of So that's another aspect too.
That's another story for another time.
Yeah, but I think they tried to do that for that very reason.
Oh,
it's like, okay, maybe we can show, hey, this is what was going on in his life, and then he went back to that.
There is one way that actually, now thinking about it, reflecting on, because you guys do say that there's a lot of ways that they aren't acting like each other or acting like their normal selves. In some ways, just thinking about this just now, if you do look at the story, Leia's not just thinking about the daunting task of possibly relocating her people and also having an alliance that can help with the Imperial Remnant. She's also has other duties that she's doing, like delegating between, which is a small subplot between the Barbells and the Verpines, which were also introduced.
Yeah.
And because they're about to go to war. So in a way, a lot of her uncharacteristic actions could be that she's kind of getting burnt out in herself because she's tackling so much that she's literally overdoing herself in a way. Also, for Han, if you think about it, yeah, he's a scoundrel. Yeah, he's also aware of that we haven't got into. He's aware of a history, shall we say, until we get to that moment of his family, but he's also, he knows the truth about that history, but he is thinking in a way, I can't remember the word, but it's like you got a person that's literally offering her 60 some odd worlds.
Yeah, betrothed, basically, maybe
a trillionaire, and she's a princess, so it kind of, in some ways, it makes sense. Yes, they chose to act on their love for each other, but he does recognize, and it's even stated in this book, he does recognize that she does still care for her people a great deal.
Oh yeah, and I don't think
there is a small possibility, and he thinks that it's too big of a possibility that she would actually give up or give him up for the greater good of Alderaan.
Yeah,
when
and
she already proved she won't.
Yeah, and that's I think that's just like the misconception there too, is like is there's a disconnect, and maybe it's just the writing, maybe it could have been eluded a little bit better, all that, but we'll return back to that. So Prince Isolde gives us the history of Hapes and how and why they don't like the Jedi. So the Jedi finally wiped out, the Loreal Raiders. So basically, Hapes is a system of like abandoned, what do you call
Pirates.
it? Pirates, exactly. Which is kind of funny because Han is would be considered a pirate, but
Right.
and and then so it was so secluded and stuff like that. But the reason why the Jedi basically abandoned them, I guess that's what I'm getting at, and that's why they don't care for the Jedi that much, because of their stance and the abandonment, I guess you could say, during the time. So I don't know if you remember that, Teresa.
No, I don't remember.
Yeah. So I know you just got done reading the book Orange Hat.
Yeah.
So go ahead and allude a little bit more on that.
Well, yes, the Hapes cluster thousands of years ago basically were originally from pirates, and they eventually became what they were. However, one of the things that they did not like actually was the Jedi. And and you can definitely tell from Ta'akum, or however they pronounce it nowadays.
Yeah,
that's
Ta'akum.
how Ta'akum, how she alludes to the Jedi in this. She's like, I do not want a bunch of oligarch mystics around me.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that woman is ruthlessly brutal.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everybody thought that, or you think that your mom can get ruthlessly brutal when she's protecting her cub. This woman just takes it to a whole new level of brutality, galactic wide, let's just say.
And she even goes against her own family. Like, okay, so I'll do some spoiler and Matt Wilkins is here. Hello, Matt. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna go like fast forward in the history here. Even Jason Solo, basically she sends out assassin to kill her own granddaughter, Alana Solo, and
because she hates Force sensitives.
That and she doesn't want her to be in charge, and all of that, and that so that right there, that woman right there, it's like she doesn't want to feel out of control herself, and so anybody that has control in any which way, enforce control in any which way, is a threat to her. And I think that's why one of the reasons why she did not care for Jedi. And so that's right there. I just wanted to touch bases on that, on why Hapes, like the Queen Mother and them, don't care for Jedis that much, because there is a interesting conversation and how she interacts with Luke in this novel too. And so I thought that was really interesting, and he calls her bluff. He
knows that she's full of, or he knows he's full of, or that woman is, well, I'm not going to swear on here, full of crap. But it's like, one thing I do like what he does. He's like, can you take off your veil? Because she's, or they have the whole culture part of their, culture that she does not ever remove her veil.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what he's like, could you remove your veil and tell me this? And I'm like, that's actually good writing, because if you could see a person's full face, you can tell whether or not they're lying.
Yeah.
And even without the Force, that is a possibility. And I love how Luke just sees right through her.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He does. And that right there, that, like Teresa said, there are good moments in here. There are a lot of good moments in here. There's some, like she said earlier, she's like, just ignore the bad. But that's kind of sad to get a story where you have those moments where you like, the biggest plot is like the plot that you're like, what the hell was he thinking? What was the writer thinking about this, And so let's move on. So basically he wins the planet Dathamir in desperate plight. And I'm just going over the summary here, not in depth, because we'll talk about this in depth. Basically he kidnaps Leia, and there's, and takes her to that planet. He gives her like an ultimatum, and between her decision. So not only is she being pressured by Mon Mothma, who is basically the passive aggressive person in this, Threkin Horn, which is basically the antagonist on this. And then Isolder, which basically, and I'm going to ask you about this too, Teresa. So after I'm done, I want you to tell me about this. So Isolder, the Hapes people are very handsome, beautiful people. And how Leia responds about him and his looks. So you want to go over that? And so she forgets about Han and totally just comes into this lust kind of thing.
Oh, with the Happies guy, or
Isolder, yes.
Yeah, the Hapen Prince.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was also, like I said, it just wasn't where I wanted to go with it. But yeah, I mean, like, I guess I'm trying to remember what actually happened there. I do remember that. Yeah, that she and she even kissed him, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
He kissed her. See? Difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, he kissed her. Whatever. I guess there's only so many ways I can say I hated it with every passionate core of my being. I mean. I want to take it and throw it out the window and burn it and tear it up into little pieces and pretend it never happened. But I mean, we've all seen hot people, but for frack's sake, she's got Han Solo. I mean, my gosh, girl.
Yeah, that's your like roughneck hot kind of guy right there, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was like, I get it. They're making the Hapes people, and it's always been something alluded in the lore after this, is like the Hapens people are so narcissist in the sense that they will have cosmetic basically surgery, Star Wars wise and stuff, to maintain that beauty or that or the looks and stuff like that, because they are so I guess you could say into themselves in a way. Yeah, and that's even alluded in there, like they are so narcissistic with their looks and stuff, and a demeanor and how they keep themselves and stuff. So what do you think about that, Orange Chat? I'm glad I'm having two different voices here. So it makes this conversation even more interesting. So what did you think about that with how she perceived Isolder?
Isolder's actually an interesting character in this, and the beginning of this book actually does, and later in the book does actually show how Wolverton's writing actually contradicts itself in a way. It is revealed that Isolder is very minorly force sensitive.
Yeah.
Luke actually does intuit that he is minorly force sensitive. He's not going to be strong enough to carry a lightsaber or move things with his mind, but he does intuit the force in a way. Now, there is a scene in the earlier part of the book where he kisses her, and then he's like, come with me and you'll see the world you're about to rule, essentially. And she's like, okay. In a way, I always, when I read it first, before I read it recently, back years ago, I kind of thought that maybe Isolde is, without knowing, using force suggestion or force persuasion. And but then looking back on it, it doesn't make sense because Leia is all but immune to that. And it's like, yeah, he may be able to intuit the force, but the one thing that I then chalked it up to is that this man is so sure of himself that she's kind of slightly taken with it because of how he confident this man projects himself. They also say that he fell in love with her from a distance. He only observed her when she was on Hades. He never went up to her until the book or until the events or current events. And it's like, first off, falling in love with somebody from a distance is a very dangerous thing to do because it almost builds an obsession.
Yeah.
And that is something that he does have. He is obsessed with Leia. And I'm thinking to myself, how has she not picked up on this, that this dude is seriously all wrong for her?
Yeah.
Because other than that, he actually does have a very high intellect. Isolde's character is he's a man that's literally growing to see the flaws of his own culture. And he's also questioning his own culture because he's accepted that that's the way his culture is. They're a very matriarchal society that basically see men as breeding stock, like the Amazons, which is something that bothered me, is that Wolverton uses the word Amazon in this book so much. And it's like, don't use earthly concepts. use earthly reference, but don't take earthly cultures and put them into a galaxy far, far away.
Soul Assassin, even a galaxy far, far away, simps exist.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
It's like, oh my god. But yeah, and
he was simping for Leia from far away.
Exactly. And I do like how there's the bodyguard of Isolde, Astarta, her name is. And it's like, dude, you should just marry this chick. You could tell just by the reading that she's madly in love with him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you not pick up on this, dude?
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on here. So, because we could, put on just other conversations like this. Yeah. Excuse me. But as Han and then takes her to Dathamir, we do have the warlord Zinj and his flagship Iron Fist that is blockading the planet and also threatening to do a blackout of the planet as well. But he ends up getting past with the blockade using Imperial frigate as cover. And so we get there and we get a whole new culture introduced to us, a whole new culture and in the universe here, and that's Dathamir and its inhabitants, the Dathamerian Witches. So what'd you think about that introduction of this matriarch women, clan of women, different tribes of them and stuff like that? And they're force sensitive. They do use the force basically. You have the dark and the light side they use, but it's alluded to as something different for them. And they ride rancors, and they're just this. They see men as just as just the means of existence and help whenever they need. And I'm just saying that mildly. So Teresa, what do you think about that?
Oh yeah, the Witches of Dathamir and the Night Sisters, that was definitely the coolest part of this whole book. I really did enjoy that, and the culture. I've recently been reading the original Wonder Woman comics. And so I was like, oh yeah, they're riding these beasts and all that. Certainly it is inspired by that. The whole idea that they use men as breeders, it's very toxic, if you know what I mean. But it makes sense with who they are, and they're this clan, and they're cool. Like I said, we have the Tinin, I can't pronounce her name, lady
Mhm.
that eventually catches Isildur's eye. So it works out really well, and I enjoyed Luke learning about them and experiencing it, and all of those interactions. They were loads of fun, and it's good world building too. Again, we got this new culture, we got these new people, and it was going to launch off more of what we saw later.
Mhm. Exactly. And thank you, Abanas, for the $5 super chat. Pop in to listen. I'm at work though, so I got to be careful. So happy that you're all discussing the courtship of Princess Leia. Salute to you all. Yeah, it's a very great, interesting talk here because we have, mixed. This is such a mixed review type of book. And I've seen even on social media and stuff like that, and how everybody perceives, and it's like the mixed review. You have people who absolutely love it, and then you have people who absolutely hate it, or they like certain aspects and not the other. And so Orange Hat, what do you think about the introduction of this new world building of Dathamir and its inhabitants?
I would actually, if I could rate it, I'd say it's an 8 out of 10 with how they are cultured, because Wolverton did a great job with portraying how there are several clans. You got the clan sisters, and then you got the Night Sisters. The Night Sisters are basically dark side users, and they're also exiles. They weren't actually even meant to be a clan of their or in themselves, because they were all exiled from different clans and spread throughout.
Yeah.
But one of the things, or it's actually a very interesting thing, is how they managed, or what their origin is. It was a fallen Jedi who was exiled on the planet, and she taught her daughters, and it then became a widespread. That is something that was very good that Wolverton did. He actually gave an origin to them. Now, the Rancors is where it got a little silly. While I do love that they tamed the Rancors and whatnot, it's like, or the only thing that I thought was overt was how they could, or he gave them weapons and armor. And I'm like, they're wielding halberds? I'm like, what? And they have armor. And I'm like, okay, I get that armor can come in handy, but you literally described one of their weapons as a halberd, which is a pole axe, essentially. And I'm thinking, looking at the size of Rancors, looking at how big they are, because the one in Jabba's palace was either a baby or it was a stunted growth, where these things are a lot bigger. And I'm like, how big do the trees get here if they're wielding halberds at their size? So it does kind of make a person wonder. But I do also like that these Rancors are exceptionally social. He gave so much put so much thought into how these things can be social, how they can talk and be understood by the Night Sisters, and how there's a family of Rancors that is helping the Singing Mountain clan, which is the main clan that is introduced in this one. And I'm like, that is interesting. Also, he goes into their biology of the Rancors, as well as that they don't have sweat glands, which is something that is interesting, because he talks about, and he goes over how they balance that out too, how they are always taking dips in ponds and whatnot. He really did a good job with creating the structure of this planet and the cultures. It's just that for the Rancor specifically, he did kind of go overboard. But when it comes to Jess Zirian and the Night Sisters, and I think the other one is called Barika, which is the one that is interesting too.
Yeah.
She, or Baratha, I believe her name was, because she's the one that actually tries mind dominating Han, and it's like, where's your ship? And he starts pointing, and one of the Night Sisters is like, do not do that again or we will kill you. And I'm like, okay, then these sisters do have an idea of how wide potential the Force really is.
Mm-hmm.
I also like how Tenennial discusses with Luke, because Luke does end up on the planet, because Luke, what we didn't really discuss yet is that Luke is on has a mission of his own.
Right.
He's
searching for relics and stuff to restart the Jedi Order, and he goes to Tula, and actually he goes to Roche, I believe, or something like that, or
yes,
Tula,
the Roche
whatever.
system.
Yeah, and then he finds out a recording of Jedi Master Yoda. And it's about 400 years old, and it basically discusses about the ship of Chuan-Thor stranded on Dathomir. So there we go.
And also Yoda does give a glimpse of repulsed we were by the witches of Dathomir.
Mm-hmm.
And you also or one thing that we did touch on was Zinj had a fleet over Dathomir.
Right.
And that is actually for a specific reason.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which I will only talk about this once in here, because I know we don't like to touch on anything Disney or Filoni. Filoni screwed up Dathomir so badly, because with this introduction to Dathomir, folks, imagine a planet and a culture that even Palpatine, Darth Sidious, feared.
Mm-hmm.
He feared it so much, he put a supersized Super Star Destroyer over it just to make sure nobody gets off that planet. And he left his own Imperial garrisons, and he put political prisoners on that planet.
Yeah. Right.
And as soon as he figured out just how dangerous the Night Sisters were, he stranded people, getting them off, or getting people in all ships off that planet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how powerful are these women, or these characters, if even the Emperor feared them?
Mm-hmm.
And that just was one of the main interesting things about it.
Yeah.
And also knowing that Yoda himself went to the planet, and there's a character there that also knew Yoda at the time that he was there, Mother Rell. And I love how this book basically writes it as a mystery in a way, with Luke's arc through this book. It's a kind of a mystery and investigation that he is trying to solve. What was the Chuan-Thor? Was it a person? What is Dathomir? Is that a person, or is that a place? Is it a society?
Yeah, because Dathomir, from what I got, was even wasn't in the records, I guess you can say, because of Palpatine.
Yeah,
as well. And because of his I guess you could say, fear, I think this also hindered the planet from evolving into this high-tech planet, which that's why we see them more as primitive in the Star Wars galaxy rather than high-tech.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then he finds out that the Chuan-Thor was a ship. It was a floating academy that had made landfall and wrecked or on Dathomir. And then with Mother Rell, we'll get to that later, but it is just such a great way that he wrote the Dathomirians, the witches, and the clan sisters. And I love how he separated them, or making sure that people knew Night Sisters were not clan sisters. They were exiled for a reason, because they were misusing their magics or the Force. And there was even ways that you could tell that they were misusing, because, which is explained, if your face, or if you burst a vessel in your face or by your eye, that's the mark of a Night Sister. That means you were not allowing, or that you were overusing and using it wrongly, which is something that happens to Tenennial.
Yeah. So Teresa, what do you think about this? About about Palpatine and his stance against Dathomir and stuff.
Oh, it makes complete sense that they weren't some people to be F whiffed, because he saw them as a threat. And anything, as it was already said, anytime you see something as a threat, there's a good reason for it, because Palpatine was Mr. Super powerful dude, and he didn't like these women, and not because he was sexist. He saw so I guess I can't add to anything that was really already said, except of course, and they made that very clear that that's the way that Palpatine saw them. And I think it made him kind of cool, but it also makes sense that that's why we've never heard of them before this time. It wasn't just like, oh, they were just off screen and we just remembered to talk about them. There was a reason why he didn't want people to know about them.
Yeah, exactly.
To answer Soul Assassin, I'm sorry to interrupt, but to answer Soul Assassin, his question, do humans come from Dathomir? Originally, no. They were the reason why they were, or humans populated was, or how humans populated were, essentially, it was an exile planet for the Jedi.
Yeah. Yeah. Soul Assassin says, not a fan of Maul coming from Dathomir. No, and that's the thing is that, okay, this makes this disjoints the lore when Dathomir wasn't introduced in the Clone Wars, and we can go back and forth about this with it was George's idea versus it was Filoni's idea, but then when you look into the history of this, after a certain, like a season 2 or whatever, George basically gave reins to Filoni. He was a trusted, director of this all here. And fans already proven time and time again that he didn't care about the continuity of the EU. He just grabbed whatever he wanted and put it in there without any thinking, maybe this is going to hurt the overall story and lore and history of Star Wars. And I think we could see James Luceno when you read Darth Plagueis, that storyline that he introduces in there about Maul coming from Dathomir and his Maul being taken to Palpatine. It was such a disjointed little piece of writing in that book. It was like, boom, there it was, and then after that, never alluded on again or anything like that. It's like he had to put that in there because he had to make sense of the lore somehow with what
he was trying to keep it to the new lore that was coming from Filoni.
Exactly. And so I don't want to make this a Clone Wars discussion or anything like that. But I really, really think that this is where we started seeing, like when the Clone Wars came out, this is where we started seeing that that ego was starting to being implied, inserted into the story rather than, just solely writing and creating story for the lore. And I think, Teresa, in the beginning, you alluded on that, like, some writers don't want to come into a franchise that they have to follow rules. Well, David Filoni didn't want to really follow rules, but he was kept because of, his animation and stuff like that. So, and that's a great example of that.
Yeah. Well, and also I think we have to, I'll throw out a thesis here that I can't prove one little bit. I think that George was getting close to his, I'm starting to give zero clucks.
Correct. Yes.
Point. Yeah. So he's like, fine, whatever. Because remember, it wasn't too long after that he went ahead and sold. He had his new family and new babies and all that. It's like, I'm getting old. Screw it all. Fine. Whatever.
Yeah. I think
and then he realizes that he made a big mistake years later. It's like, you screwed up there, dude.
Yeah.
He realized he made a mistake, but I still think he gives zero clucks because he's got $4 billion.
Yeah.
Actually, 5.5.
Yeah.
Because the treatments for 7, 8, and 9 were $500 million each.
Yeah. And then, so with that, we'll move on here. So let's go ahead and get into, because we already elaborated on Zinj and why he's there. He's blockading the planet and he wants to black it out. So basically he wants to kill the planet because blacking out the planet basically will kill
the
everything
Cloak.
on there. And so that would further demise the planet there. And so Luke is finds out about Han kidnapping Leia and about his discovery, you know, of the Jedi, like whatever, you know, Chunathur, whatever it's called again. There we go. And he wants to learn more because he wants to reestablish the Jedi. He promised Yoda, and this is where, and I'll go there right now, where Disney Lucasfilm has failed to recognize of what Yoda told him, and his pledge to Yoda that he will teach.
Pass on what you have learned.
Exactly. And so he's on his own journey to restart the Jedi, new Jedi Order, which was also alluded in the Revenge of the Sith novel, where, you know, Yoda says that Luke you create a new order. So we have all this lore tying in, leading up to Luke's moment here, basically.
Yay.
And
I did. I loved it.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's one reason why he goes to Dathamir. Another is like his best friend kidnaps his sister in desperation. And Isolder, you know, kind of like, brings Luke in because of that as well. So he has a couple of reasons why he needs to go to Dathamir. And so, Teresa, what did you think about all of this? Like Luke's exploration, his discovery, and also his I don't know what that was about, but also his Isolder recruiting him to rescue Leia from Han.
Well, you always have to throw in things that ruins my answer right at the end, because that whole part was just ridiculous. And I have to rescue Leia from anything. Yeah, no, but I'm not. I'm just like, yeah, that reminded me. Oh yeah, there was also that stupid ass bull crap in there. But no, I liked the part about Luke. He was truly a seeker of knowledge. This book reminds us that he's kind of still flying blind. And then when he finds that thing at the end, I can't even pronounce any of these names in this book. But when he's with the witches of Dathamir and all that, the way you just see him gradually gathering the information and the things that are going to lead to his Jedi Academy. And that it didn't happen overnight, but it was definitely something that he felt was his calling, and he went for it. No, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then so we already know what you feel about like the whole plot of like Leia and stuff like that. All right. So Orange Hat. So I know you pointed out some stuff in this book on Twitter and stuff like that about Luke's growth, his discovery, what he wants to do and stuff. So what'd you think about his little arc here? Actually it's a big arc for him on, discovering the ship, following what he found of Yoda. And what is crazy is that Yoda has even told the guardian of the ship, I forget her name. Do you remember it?
Mother Rel.
There we go. Mother Rel, that a Jedi will come to retrieve this. Basically, I'm saying it short and paraphrasing. So what do you think of all of that?
One thing I did like was how she stayed alive literally through forced hibernation for the most part. Yeah. Mother Rel. Mm-hmm. That just tells you how strong she is in the Force. That she literally stayed 200 to 300 or 300 to 400 years alive.
Fear these people because of that.
Well, yeah, that would also add to his fear. But the one thing that I thought was a little overselling it was that she knew his name, that it would be Luke Skywalker. If that was the case, then how the heck did Yoda not put together that Anakin Skywalker, It does cause a small inconsistency. However, when all was said and done afterwards, he came to the planet, and I do like how he levitates himself down when they're shot down, and Isolder's witnessing all this. And another thing, Isolder's learning from Luke, and I love how Isolder does have a breakdown. He's like, this is not how you're supposed to treat people. That's not how the universe works. I mean, Isolder's growth in this by observing Luke is so freaking fun to watch and read about, because the way that he breaks down, he's like, why don't we just ask these creatures to carry us all the way? or make these creatures take us all the way because they're trying to cross the desert to get it or to find Han and Leia.
Mhm.
And he's like, I don't make them do anything. They offered. And he's explaining the Force to Isolde, and he's like, that's not how you're supposed to act. Because Isolde's still conflicted between his world and other people, or in the world, or the greater galaxy.
Mhm.
And that's why he's kind of skeptical of the Jedi. Because he doesn't know. It's like, is this magic or is this just whatever? But between Luke and Motherell and his arc, when she presents him with a huge crate of all of the data that he needs, I'm
Right.
like, that is seriously a tear-jerking moment in a way,
Mhm.
because he now has the ability to do what Yoda asked of him, pass on what you have learned. He didn't say restart the Jedi. He said pass on what you have learned.
Mhm.
Failures and all. And that's actually one grudging, never mind on that. But anyway, and that's why Luke's Jedi Order is different from the old Republic Jedi Order.
Mhm.
Because he tells Tenenil later on in the book, your first child will be a daughter. I'm sorry, that Jesus moment didn't need to be in there. It's like, just tell her when you do have a kid, if you feel it is necessary, send her to me for training, or send them to me for training. You don't have to point out that it's going to be a girl. I mean, it's quite obvious that most of the or any woman on Dathomir, if they have a child, it's most likely going to be a daughter.
Mhm.
That's, in a way, it's a genetic disposition in a way, or predisposition. Even if they have males, they still will care for the males, but chances are the male wouldn't have any power. Male witches, as they are considered, Luke, is a rarity.
Yeah.
But also Isildur falling for Tenenil throughout that was a weird it's a weird happening, because that was one of the worst part of the writing. He doesn't really explain clearly how he suddenly just starts having feelings for Tenenil.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you there. So Teresa and Orange Hat, I think this is where we find maybe the discovery of where Wolverton's weakness is like the evolution of like someone that, like, either falling out of love or falling into love with each other.
Yeah.
And the progression with that.
Human intricacy is not his strong suit.
Yeah, exactly. So
Well,
you have anything to-
I'll say it once, I'll say it twice, and I'll just say it one more time because I can, that he did a fantastic job with his more children's-oriented book, or rather tween-oriented book, The Jedi Apprentice, with young Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn. That was great character development.
Yeah.
Well, that's evolution of writing.
Like some people, they do have their weak points. Like every single
Yes.
writer have their weak points and their strong points.
Yeah.
And
I haven't read any of his other work, so I wouldn't know what's characteristic of what he actually does. Like, because a lot of these writers, of course, wrote their own stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how they got their gig.
Exactly. And so I want to keep this within a certain time frame here. So we'll keep pushing forward here. And so basically, we have all these wonderful interactions between Luke and the witches, and them thinking, wow, okay, so you're basically a male witch, and they're fascinated with him and stuff like that. And stuff like that. And then so Han is there, and he is desperate to he gives, Leia the ultimatum, which we forgot to mention earlier, is like, give me, what did he say, 7 or 8 days?
7 days.
7 days. Yeah, 7 days. And if then I haven't, proven myself to you, you can go ahead and marry. And I'm like, well, hasn't he done that already? That's one disconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man. Seriously? You already won her heart. Why do you have to do it again?
Yeah.
You know what? If this is truly where Leia was going at this point, I would be on Han's side if he was like, well, screw you, witch, or with a no, fine.
Yeah.
This is how you're going to be. Thank you, but no, thank you. I'm like, come on, Han, have a bit of dignity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the minute that the scenario or the time frame where he does actually win her back was basically just giving himself up to destroy Zinja's ship and all that, and then willing to give himself up. And Leia's like, "Oh God, I remember, I love him so much." And I'm just paraphrasing right now. I'm just being, you know. And so that right there, I'm like, you should have known from the beginning why you loved him.
Yeah, it's like,
you know, and why you fell for him, and exactly. Now, if this was a reminder again, why would you have to be reminded again?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he hasn't done that before 1,000 million gazillion times.
He's a general because of her. He's fought in the New Republic or the Rebel Alliance because of her. He stayed because of her.
yeah,
You know, we see his hero's journey in the OT from going from selfish to selfless and willing to give her up to Luke, you know, not being aware that they were brother and sister until she realized that. He's like, if you love him, then so go on, you know, go be with him kind of deal, you know, willing to give her up for her own happiness because he went from selfish to selfless in the OT. That was his character growth. But I get that, you know, he was being desperate. There's desperation with Leia too on wanting to secure secure not only Alderaanians' new homeworld or a place for them to seek refuge, but also, you know, the New Republic. I get that. I just think that it should have been written better. That's why we have so much conflicts between people in this discussion about this book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And so what'd you think about that whole piece, Orange Hat?
honestly, yes, there are between Han and Leia, it was already established that they were in love with each other, and that love should never have been called into question in a way, not even by her duty to Alderaan, because she already, Teresa and you already pointed out in Return of the Jedi, they said, screw the Alliance, we're going after Han. And it took them a while, but they eventually did it. But having it they didn't or they couldn't come up with a valid enough reason. I mean, even with duty to your people, that's not a valid enough reason to trump the love you have for a person who you literally said, I would sacrifice my entire cause for. I mean, literally, they said, they essentially did say, screw the Alliance, we're going after Han. And in a way, I do recognize that, yeah, there is that duty that you're literally, or if you don't marry Salder, this could literally put the lives of trillions at stake. But I'm like, but she loves Han.
Yeah, part of me is like, you're so eager to have a marriage alliance between us. Well, go ahead, volunteer. You know, go right ahead, Mon Mothma and all that. I'm not stopping you. Marry him.
Exactly. Yeah. You could do it.
Yeah, go for it. It's my personal annoyance in real life and in fiction, rather, that everyone's always just willing to, you know, volunteer you to sacrifice your life. It's like, really?
Right.
You know, sometimes people are like, well, you should just quit your job then.
Right?
Yeah. Someone was saying that about like, that's what all airplane pilots should do. Well, just quit your jobs if they're making you wear a mask. And I'm like, yeah, Are you an airline pilot? Wait, are you volunteering to quit your job? No. So shut up.
Exactly.
I digress. But they're volunteering someone else. It's like, come on. What the hell's wrong with you all? You know?
Yeah. And then so we'll start wrapping this up now because we're coming towards the end. I mean, we can get into all the lore with the Dathamerian Witches and all this. I mean, there's so much depth in it other than that plot that kind of seems like contrived a little bit, or, you know, maybe like poorly written, maybe, because I understand where he was getting at. I just think it was done poorly because we get this mixed reviews of like, oh God, we did not recognize the couple versus, oh, I get it, you know, kind of deal. So in the aftermath, Luke, secures the remains of the Chuanthor on Dathamir, all of that. So we begin to see the development of, like his research, his study in Tatooine ghosts. Leia does have a conversation when Luke is looking through all the stuff that he found. So that's something to look forward to, Orange Chat. And then so he begins to rebuild the new Jedi Order, to rebuild it, to bring it back. And of course, when we get to the Thrawn trilogy, he still doubts, because he's like, it's only me right now. Am I capable of training my niece and nephew? Blah, 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 blah. So we have that arc. It's apparently there. And so let's get into that bit that I didn't mention because I was waiting for this. All right. So Han is like, in order to win her back, because this is all about royalty. She's royalty, and she deserves, she has that royal calling, like she must marry for royalty. There's that little bit of that in there. And so in that, C-3PO does his research and finds out the true name of the solos when it comes to the Corellian system and all of that, and that he does come from, in his way past history, comes from royalty, and then somehow along the line that they are taken down and they turn into like scoundrels, basically pirates and stuff like that. What do you think about that, Teresa?
Oh shit, I don't remember.
All right, Orange Cats. Well, I'll go with you, and then you can remember.
Okay, maybe it'll jog my memory.
Yeah, Han Solo being the king of Corellia. C-3PO, oh my god, dude. That was that entire sub arc and subplot was just so ridiculous. But I do like how it came out at the end that it was not accurate. Because his ancestor was a pretender to the throne, it turns out.
Well, that is still questionable.
Well, he confirmed it with the city computer on Coruscant, apparently.
No. Well, see, this is where I will say this here, is that, like I said, somewhere along the lineage, something happened to knock the family down. And that's even elaborated in the Solo trilogy.
All right, well then maybe there is something to it. But I do like how in this book it is silly, but it is done well. It's like, or because they're trying to, or there's the Alderanian council that they had, and freaking C-3PO comes in and Threkkin's like, okay, we'll let the droids speak. It's like, dude, you seriously have a bias against droids, which they actually pointed out. And he's like, well, for all intents and purposes, Corellia didn't become a republic until 300 years ago. So for all intents and purposes, Han Solo is king of Corellia. And it's like, what? I'm sorry, what?
And even then, when you look into the history, the Corellian system really never came a part of the New Republic, really, in full.
Yeah, they were always separate.
They just helped out with ships and stuff like that, because even when you get into Legacy of the Force, that's even talked about and discussed with Jason and what's going on with them.
I mean, yeah.
So very consistent right there, because they wanted to always remain independent. That was always Corellians. The Corellian system, the Corellians, is always being independent.
And that was actually something they did point out, because they didn't say they became part of the New Republic. They said they became a republic.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They were always independent. They always revered their independency and their roguishness, I guess you can say. And that's why when you see characters like Han, not necessarily Wedge, but like even Corn Horn and all those who are Corellians, they have that certain Corellian roguish behavior. Yeah.
And they hate odds.
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought that was really neat, because we have Hapans who are narcissists. We have Corellians that have this like rogue personalities and stuff, and the way they walk and their swagger, I guess you can say. And so I thought, I think with the overall history of the EU and all that, keeping to those world building aspects of these people and their systems and stuff was very much consistent.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, but with Solo and the finding outs, like it was alluded that he is. There's also story that he isn't, and I think that George wanted to keep it vague,
Yeah.
in a sense. But that's the reason why that strike never told Han his name.
Mm-hmm. Also, Han was very embarrassed when C-3PO brought it up. He literally walks out. He's like, no, 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 no.
They turned him off too. So that's what happened, Lisa, is that there's the history of the Solos was basically the very first occupation of Corellia. A Solo was a king, and then there was a line of them, royalties. And then later on, some kind of like mishap where the hierarchy was taken down somehow, some way. With assassinations, we don't know. We will never know now. And so that was discovered about Han. So kind of like saying, okay, it's okay for Leia to marry him because somehow he's royalty. That's what I got.
Yeah.
He
had a legitimate claim.
Right, exactly. And so I thought that was like, okay, well, that was like different. There shouldn't be, we shouldn't have to have a reason why someone has to marry someone and be justified, right? We already know why Leia and Han are together. That was already established in the OT.
And you know what? It's no one's damn business.
Right.
That too.
I mean, the libertarian in me's coming out. It's like, what the fuck? I don't have to justify myself to you. This is, I mean, for fun.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you everything. I don't have to tell you anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where Han was embarrassed. He's like, I don't care. He learned, about his family through Thrak and Sal Solo and his research on his own and stuff. And, so part of him like had this, like you can't choose your family, right? And so that's one like I would love to allude on is like talk about Thraken and him and all that, but maybe it would be a later discussion here.
Yeah.
So with the courtship of Princess Leia, it's important to the introduction of two cultures, which we already alluded on, and that's the Hapens and the Witches of Dathamir, and the world building of Dathamir and Hapes cluster as well. And we see a lot of that going on through the history of Star Wars from this point on. So this is where the introduction to that. And then
also, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt. One thing we didn't touch on was Luke's how Luke kind of is awakened to a deeper connection to the Force in this book.
All right, go ahead and do that real quick, and then we'll start closing out.
Because during the book, the battle that ensues, he goes up against Jeth Zirian, the leader of the Night Sisters, and she nearly kills him with a flick of her finger. Mm-hmm. I mean, would put Palpatine or give Palpatine a run for his money. But while he's laying there nearly dead, all the different little creatures around him are coming to him and literally gifting a bit of their connection to the Force to him. Mm-hmm. And this opens him up to the Force in such a way that he can pilot the Millennium Falcon, use all of their guns at pinpoint accuracy, and fly it like nobody has ever flown it before, which is one of the greatest parts in the book because he nearly takes Jeth Zirian's head off with one shot while Han is literally a meter away from her. Mm-hmm. And when he gets on board, he's like, who's piloting? Luke. Who's handling guns? Luke. What? And it just, the way that Wolverton did write this, because this is actually good writing, is that he is exerting himself, yes, but he just got wickedly opened up to the Force, which does become something of great consistency later on of how he uses the Force later on in the series and in the EU. Yeah,
exactly. And, so that like, with Luke, and he's been my most favorite character, like from the beginning, the inception of Star Wars, right? I do have other characters that I've gained really loved since then, since the EU started being developed and stuff like that. But when you look at his progression, this is another story that shares progression. And this is like the one of the golden nuggets in this novel, is how his discovery of the ship, of his his growth in strength of the Force, and even his wisdom, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Luke was fantastic in this.
His wisdom was way up there in this one.
And I think Wolverton really writes Jedi well. I don't think he could.
Oh, yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like I said, I get where he was getting at. He wanted like the conflict with Leia, with her responsibility as a politician and as the reigning princess of Alderaan, and finding a place for her people and stuff like that, and that responsibilities versus her own wants and needs. I just think he could have done a better job with that. And with Han, in his desperation, he could have done a better job with that as well. We don't know. Everybody handles desperation differently and stuff, but just how he handled it, I think it could have been done better, because it was too much of a drastic change. But maybe that's what he was trying to go with, is because Han was too settled with thinking that they were established versus her decision here and him trying to do a desperate plight. I don't know. So I get Teresa's take on that, and other people who are like, no, this is like unrecognizable. And your comparison with them in The Force Awakens is I
I know it hurts, but hey, the truth is the truth.
Yeah. It's accurate.
Was not perfect, and I'm not afraid to say it. It was as out of character, because what it did was it ignored all of their progress up to that point, and that's what they did in The Force Awakens. Everything that Han went from A to B to C to D to Z, and they completely ignored it in The Force Awakens. Same idea.
Yeah, exactly. And then Johnny Ohm says Thraken Solo could have been written, or any other character tied to Han's past. Writing him as Ladder's cousin is way too unoriginal. I think I really think that was done well.
Yeah, because go ahead. Sorry.
Because it shares like who his family was, like with the twins, like his his grandfather, I guess you could say, and his twin sister, Thraken's mom or whatever, and our mother to Thraken's mom, and then it kind of shows like they were wealthy, and there's reasons why like Thraken's mom stay hidden and stuff, but there's a lot of stuff eluded in that, or put in that is a very interesting story when it goes behind the arc that they were trying to create for Solo, and being the heir to royalty from the past. We probably won't ever get any more of that, obviously, but I don't think George was even gonna let that be confirmed a yay or nay. I think he wanted to keep it vague for the sake of Han's arc and stuff. So yeah. So and then Soul Assassin says, Force Awakens? What nonsense are you all speaking of?
Well, hey, if the shoe fits.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's go around here. Teresa, so what do you rank this novel as?
I would rank it as a 5, a solid 50%, because 50% of the book is good, and the other 50% of it is garbage. So 50%. And that's for the Dathaway sisters, the Night Sisters, all the stuff with Luke and all that. That was great. The rest, it's not even in my head. It's in my head canon. It didn't even happen.
Yeah, I could tell, because you get so upset about talking about it.
Yeah, it's hey, some people got a hill they're gonna die on. I'm dying on this one.
Okay, well that's fair enough. All right, so Orange Hat, what do you rank this novel
I'll
as?
be a little bit more generous. I'll actually put it at a 6 to 7, because aside from the Han and Leia part, which is a huge part of the book, it's still, or the lore expansion in this book just by itself was enough to really make it shine. Yes, there are poorly written parts to it. So 6.5 is like a 65 in a high school grade. That's just a pass. So it passes by the skin of its teeth. Yeah, there are problems, but it is still in many other ways really well done. I absolutely love the book, but I do also acknowledge its flaws.
Yeah. For me, it'll be a 7. I love the rich. I love continuity. I love the world building and stuff like that. And this is what he was brilliant at with this, and it opened up the lore so much after this. I like the Hapens. I like how, and you could see what he was going here. We've had both, like we had polar opposites of matriarch people. We had the narcissistic royalty, enriched women, and HAPE system basically also was another system that was created from, pirates and stuff too. So we have both of them kind of similar together, but on other sides of the tracks, I guess you could say. And, so we get, Palpatine over here being in fear of what could have possibly happened if these people got off the planet of Dathamir, and how it could probably hurt his own mission that he was doing, on becoming emperor and stuff like that. So really good world building there and stuff. I don't think that he was successful with showing the desperation between Han and Leia, and trying to make us form a secure new republic, and all that. So I think that's part of it, where he failed at and stuff. So that's where I'll stand at, with that. So with that being said, Teresa, where can we find you this coming or the rest of this week?
Well, you can
on a
find
Monday.
me. You can find me here on YouTube, Miss Martin Muses, where I talk about what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. Tonight, it's going to be the double pick at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, where we will be choosing 2 Western movies. Each of the guests will choose 2 Western movies, and people also bring their picks in the chat. This Thursday, planning on having the Once Upon a Time season 4 discussion with My Nerdy Home and Biggles Mets. And Saturday, as always, we are going to be finishing up the Return of the King before we move on to The Hobbit.
Nice. All right. And thank you guys so much. Please go subscribe to Teresa if you have not. And then, so Orange Hat Review, let us know what's going on with you and your channel, or and your neck of the social media.
Well, I'm Orange Hat Reviews. I'm actually bringing my channel back up to its proper schedule because over the last few months I've been quite busy. So I haven't been able to do all my usual streams. I've been doing random streams, but I am going to be bringing back movie discussions and versus streams that I usually do. My mystery reviews, I have one coming out tomorrow at 12. It's going to be a live stream. So tomorrow noon Eastern Standard, about the same time that OG went live today. The movie discussions that I'm going to be doing are actually going to be Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies, the extended editions in detail. So anybody who wants to join me, just hit me up on Twitter at Orange Hat Reviews to send me a DM if you want to be part of the panel. That's going to be on, or I'm changing my schedule from Fridays to Thursdays. That way I'm not competing with Friday Night Tights, because trying to stream on Fridays is crickets most of the time. But yes, it's going to be mostly Thursday evenings where I'm going to be doing my what used to be Friday streams.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sounds very good here. So please go subscribe to Orange Hat if you have not. And thank you guys so much for coming here. And, in honor of Dave Wolverton, he's, contributes so much to the Star Wars lore in general. And so, this is why we decided to review this. And this in no way our critique is saying that he's a bad person or he's a bad writer. It's like I've said before, some writers have, a lot of writers have their strong points and their weaknesses. And it's fair. And it's fair because we're not perfect. No one's perfect. And this book here is a fun adventure. And especially for Luke and stuff. And it's worth the read. Listen to us, but you go and read it if you haven't and make your own opinion. That's what this is about. I'm not trying to tell you what you should and shouldn't like. And that even goes to Star Wars lore in general versus the old, the classical lore, George Lucas era and Disney Star Wars, like what you like. As for me, with literature review, I think we're going to pause this for a season and come and return. I probably will have a couple of book reviews up before we conclude or we come back to literature review. I have some new adventures going on in my life that, having this and trying to schedule this and being canceled and rescheduled, it just kind of takes us out of our flow with this. And so I want to go ahead and have us take a break. So stay tuned for the announcement when we return and what book we return with. So until then, you guys have a great day. And thank you guys again, Teresa and Orange Hat, for coming in and reviewing the book with me and having this fun discussion. And thank you, chat, for coming in and supporting the channel as well. And you guys all have a good day, and may the force be with you.
Yay.
Another happy land.